we come to you here. Washington, D.C. is abuzz with what happened last night with the State of the Union address. State of the Union address that was punctuated by way more back and forth and heckling. It was like a Philadelphia Eagles game for a couple of minutes there, wasn't it? Welcome, Albert. Welcome, Kim McAllister. And welcome all to the Big Mark Thompson Show live. I'm Mark, but joined by some really cool people today. Pulitzer Prize winner Michael Hiltzik from the LA Times will be joining. Also, John Rothman, the sexy beast that was KGO, and now he is much in demand for political analysis. He'll be here to talk about everything that went down last night with the Biden speech. And then in the 11 o'clock hour, speaking of sexy, Rock and Roll Dan Ashley, ABC7. Let's get it on, everyone. Yeah. So the realities of the political realities, I should say, of much of what was visited throughout the State of the Union address, we'll speak to with John Rothman. That'll be bottom of the hour, and also a bit with Michael Hiltzik. That'll be in a few minutes. So I'm going to leave a lot of the substance aside, except to say that I thought Biden was impressive. Biden was looser at the lectern than a lot of presidents who have given that address. And I don't just mean looseness in terms of his general oratory. I mean looseness in terms of his back and forth with being heckled. I mean, this would have been unheard of in the past. But in the new America, America 4.0, which is all about smack talking and getting your Instagram moment, that America, Biden held his own. And then, and this is something we'll play for you in a bit, he turned the heckling around Social Security and Medicare, he turned that into a win for the moment. I mean, he made the GOP, who really, I'm not suggesting that everyone to a person was doing this, but let's face it, they were a feisty bunch and they were doing everything sort of short of throwing stuff in a couple of moments. He had them standing and applauding the idea of maintaining Social Security and Medicare around seniors. It was that rallying cry that they couldn't sit through. It was just, he really owned them in that moment. So was that a spontaneous thing that he did? Was it just his looseness, as I say, playing itself out? Or was it something that had been set as a trap? I don't know. But it worked. And Biden was impressive. Biden, and then, as I say, we'll get into more specifics with John and Michael. Biden told a populist message. Populist messages are going to work, particularly when you feel so much of America is disenfranchised, unhappy. I understand in polling, Biden, the economy, what's your personal state of things, none of those things poll favorably. So when you come out against everything from the banks to the cable companies to resort fees to, these are all things that he touched on. These are real life things, right? The pharmaceutical companies, we could talk about that, in maybe in the conversation with John, because I think there's a certain one-dimensional quality to calling them out. I think the pharmaceutical companies, we detailed a bit of it yesterday, have captured the FDA. And I don't know that much has changed under Biden. But anyway, be that as it may, those messages are populist. And you now begin in a party that doesn't message well. I think the Democrats don't message as effectively as the Republicans. Now, maybe the Republicans just message so well because they scream louder. But what I'd suggest is all of a sudden, last night, effectively, you had a president painting the opposing party, and I think fairly painting them, as a party of the wealthy, as a party that doesn't really care about everyman issues. And so when I heard Biden last night, I was impressed. And I'm not a Biden backer, as you know. I think Rothman is much more of a Biden backer. We can ask him when he gets here. But not because I think Biden's a bad guy. I just feel that he's an institutional politician. He's not the sort that inspires much in me. Although I will say, give the guy credit. I mean, he has made some positive changes and done some positive things, and he faces pretty much an unprecedented challenge when you look at what's happened in Ukraine on the heels of what's happening with COVID. I mean, this guy came into office without much going for him in terms of momentum. Contrast that to Donald Trump, who came into office with a lot of momentum. I mean, the Obama administration had really set the table for him, and all he had to do was, order off the menu. So all of that said, I thought it was a good night for Joe Biden. I'd be curious to know what you think, and we will. And if you'd like, I'd be curious to include any questions you might have for Michael Hiltzik and also for John Rothman. And Hiltzik's here to discuss a couple of other things as well. Kim, some quick thoughts from you.
Did you see the thing that happened between Santos and Romney?
Yes, I'm so glad you mentioned it.
Because that was, girl, you just, woo!
Now, this is to me an easily read lip reading back and forth. We're going to show it to you. I want you to see Mitt Romney walking in, and you understand these legislators, they jockey for position and sometimes get there hours ahead of time to get down into these front row positions. So Santos had to stake that out, the way you stake out a good seat at a parade. You know what I mean? Get there hours ahead of time. You make the kids go to the bathroom before you get there, all of that. Santos set up his little perch. And so Romney, noticing that he was there to essentially be a very high-profile greeter, Santos, really called him out. And if you read the lips, you can see him say, "It's embarrassing, it's embarrassing." Watch this encounter between Santos and Romney. "I believe it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. You shouldn't be up here." I don't know what Santos is saying, Kim. I can't read those lips.
No, but watch as he speaks to the back of Romney.
Right. No, he's saying
turns
something
around.
odd.
Romney passes. Santos keeps talking to the back of his head. It's like, uh-oh, that's an exchange.
Yeah. Yeah. But,
and then
Romney
he turns around and looks at him again. And it's like, oh.
Yeah, here it is. Look. You're embarrassing. It's an embarrassment. He says it 4 times. It's embarrassing that you're up here. I mean, first, can I say Romney is very handsome. How old is Romney, Albert? Can you let's guess how old Romney is. Let's guess how old Romney is. I think he's
a very distinguished older fellow.
Yeah, he Romney looks like the guy you'd cast as Romney in the movie. You know what I mean? That's what he looks like. He looks like an actor.
It's a wild idea, but it just might work.
I'm going to say he's 68. Is that right? 70?
75. 75 is the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, he's born in 1947.
Yeah. I mean, he's a distinguished man. I mean, our politics diverge, but I'll give him credit for really having some principles. I mean, let's face it, he voted for removing Donald Trump. But anyway, he called out, and you could see it in that lip reading moment. He called out Santos to his face. I give him credit.
I must have watched that video. It's just a short one. We just saw it over and over again, trying to figure out exactly what he was saying. And for a while, I thought, you're right. It seemed like embarrassment. I thought that I could pull out those words. But after the speech, he talked to reporters. And there's some bunch of articles this morning. One of them in USA Today. Apparently, he said, I called him a sick puppy for lying. He's telling the lawmaker, you don't belong here. So I guess we should be able to pull out, you don't belong here. You're a sick puppy.
Well, you don't belong here. I saw it. You're a sick puppy. I didn't see. He definitely said embarrassing or embarrassment 4 times without question. But let's look at it again. Here it is. This is him being interviewed after. Sorry.
Why did you say that to him? I didn't expect that he'd be standing there trying to shake hands with every senator and the president of the United States. It's, given the fact that he's under ethics investigation, he should be sitting in the back row and staying quiet instead of parading in front of the president and people coming into the room.
Did he respond to you?
Look. He says he that he embellished his record. Look, embellishing is saying you got an A when you got an A minus. Lying is saying you graduated from a college you didn't even attend. And he shouldn't be in Congress. And they're going to go through the process and hopefully get him out. And but he shouldn't be there. And if he had any shame at all, he wouldn't be there.
Why did you make a point to say that, though? I mean, it was kind of out of your way to.
Well, he was standing right there in the aisle, shaking hands with everybody.
Did he respond to you?
He may have. I didn't hear anything he said.
That Kevin McCarthy is not on the side.
Yes.
Anyway, that was the sideshow, but that is going on, and he is under. I mean, I'm seeing this back and forth in this chat. I'm sorry. Well, I'll deal with that. Seems like the sideshow about the sideshow, but I think the Santos thing is notable because as I was mentioning, it's sort of a new America up on the Hill. There is much more noise being made by a few people, and that's becoming acceptable. And the idea that you could lie your way into office and then just the other thing about Santos that you need to know, in addition to the fact that he's lied his way into office, I mean, that stuff it's sort of manifestly clear, is that he's not doing any kind of client services for the people who are in his district. A lot of people who need things done need it done by their representative in Congress. Apparently, he's doing almost none of that. That office is all concerned with damage control, with spin, with getting him into things. He's a guy who BS'd his way into office, and now he's just BSing around. He's not doing any of the work, minimal work, I might add, much of the time, that members of the House have to do. All right, I want to get this guy on. He's terrific. He's a friend of the show, and he's a Pulitzer Prize winner. We made him, if you missed it last time, actually show us the Pulitzer Prize, not because we didn't believe it, but because we wanted to make sure he could still get his hands on it, like he hadn't lost it under something. He did produce it, and he is so very impressive as a business writer in the LA Times. Great takes on so many things going on in this country and the world. A warm Mark Thompson Show welcome for Michael Hiltzik, please, everyone. Yes, Michael Hiltzik. Look at you, you handsome devil. All right, I want to. I'm here in Washington D.C., Michael. You can feel the undertow of lobby peddling, influence peddling with every day. I was saying yesterday, it's a better city now. Maybe better is not the word. It's more crowded now. But when I was growing up here, it felt kind of like a small town with growing pains. The downtown was drab and ugly. Now everything is really, bougie. I think it really is a lot of that lobby money and the military industrial complex, which is now grown.
It's always been said that Washington is one of the very few places in America that is absolutely recession-proof. That every time there's a change of administrations or a change in Congress, the money flows in basically to line up with the new guys or the new gals.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. So I wanted to get your take on the State of the Union last night, and then I wanted to follow up on one specific thing because you did a column on Social Security and the rumblings around rolling back Social Security or altering Social Security. I want to get to that in a second. First, your general takes.
Well, I think Biden, did what people need him to do, which is to put the accomplishments and the legislation and programs that he's put in place over the last 2 years front and center, so that first of all, this is the right comeback against Republicans who claim that he's either done nothing or done, terrible damage to the republic. So I think he did very well, and everybody seems to appreciate that he engaged these clowns in the peanut gallery face to face. And I think if you're on Twitter, and I'm still on Twitter, you're inundated by clips of Kevin McCarthy basically telling the loudmouths in his caucus to shut up or shush, I guess. And then you've got Sarah Huckabee Sanders, who, I mean, you just have to laugh. I guess she thought she was going to be, that she was going to really stick it to the Democrats by saying the choice today is between normal and crazy. So, you go on Twitter and there are just, scores and scores of clips juxtaposing, her saying that with the image of Marjorie Taylor Greene standing up and shouting and just making an idiot out of her, a crazy idiot. So I think actually it was, a very good moment to put on display the real difference between the administration in the White House and now in the Senate, and this ludicrous clown show in the House of Representatives. So
I
was jazzed.
Yeah, the House is just so much bigger, and so I guess in its even in its numbers, it can include many more in that clown show many more clowns than maybe the Senate. Although the Senate has its share. I love that you mentioned the Republican response articulated by Sarah Huckabee Sanders, because I felt as though she wasn't really responding to the speech we just heard. She wasn't really, she was sort of doing a Donald Trump style, aren't the woke Democrats so awful for America? They're crazy with their woke socialism. Biden really didn't pay any lip service to wokeness. I didn't.
It's obvious that her response, like I think most of the opposition party responses to the State of the Union, hers was written well in advance of the speech. There's no evidence that she listened to or read the speech in advance. She wasn't responding to anything that, she was basically mouthing the same shibboleths, that the Republicans have been mouthing for a couple of years now.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so now I want to ask you about Social Security. It was a centerpiece last night. It's not just Rick Scott. I mean, there are real rumblings. George Bush tried to do this. Try to what is it? Put the flag up and what is it? Run the flag up the pole and see who salutes. He tried that move with the privatization notion about Social Security during his administration.
In fact, I wrote a whole book about George Bush's privatization plan, which was convenient because I had it, right at my right hand here at my desk when I wanted to take on Mike Pence's just, imbecilic argument that we should do this. It's inexplicable that after Bush's plan crashed and burned in 2005, that Pence would revive it now. The situation is the same. He's reviving it, and Bush promoted it at a point when the stock market had taken a crash, and here's Pence doing it after the stock market lost 20% or more in a year in 2022, and he's trying to sell the American public on the virtues of essentially investing for themselves in their little measly personal accounts in the stock market. There's just no explanation. There's no
just to be clear. Again, what was suggested by Bush and was suggested by Pence, which is what Michael's talking about, was that you could take a portion of this money that has been salted away by Social Security that you're donating to this Social Security account that you're not going to see until you're 60 whatever. You could actually take a part of that and instead you could invest it in the market. And so your point is that both of these suggestions, the Bush suggestion of this thing I'm talking about and the Pence suggestion, were ill-timed, if not ridiculous on their face.
Yeah.
Well, they were, yeah, right. As you said, they were not only ill-timed, but they make no sense as basically as a counter program to Social Security, because they cannot, the private accounts that are invested in, by, a certain amount per year or per quarter by individuals, it simply cannot do what Social Security does, which is provide a lifetime retirement stipend that is inflation protected, and provide an insurance policy for families whose breadwinners die early before they reach Social Security collecting age or get disabled some point in life. As I pointed out, if you have a private account, the most of the growth in it occurs in the later years. If you have a private account and you die in year 10, which is the point at which most people become vested in Social Security, you'd have enough to keep you sustained for a few months, not for a lifetime, and not inflation protected, and certainly not as an insurance policy. So it's a scam. It's a scam.
Well, it's a scam with a gift, right, Michael? It's a gift to Wall Street.
It's absolutely, it's a gift to Wall Street. Wall Street characters have always been the ones who are promoting this. And they do it by saying, well, the stock market returns 8% a year over inflation. And as I pointed out, that's true if you have like maybe 100-year horizon, which most of us do not have. And it's misleading anyway, because it doesn't mean you're getting 8% every year. You might get, if you're lucky, 6% on average over your working life. And then in year 45, when you're about to retire, you take a 20% hit because the stock market has got,
Right.
Who can possibly think that this makes sense?
No, it's funny. I always, when people talk about the market, you should always be in the market. The market's the way I used to. I go, it all depends when the music stops for you. The music stops when you need the money. And when the music stops, if it's down, as you say, Michael Hiltzik, then you've lost. I mean, it's just that simple. By the way, imbecilic, strong, and I think unprecedented ding word. So I want to ding it.
So right, it's between that and cretinous, which is,
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Yes.
So tomorrow, President Biden's going to Florida to talk about Medicare and Social Security. And that's a big, a good place to talk about it, with a bunch of retirees who really, are dependent on those programs. Do you think he's kind of beating it up at this point now? The Republicans have said, no, that's not all of us. That's not us. Do you think it pays him off to keep talking about it?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's something that he needs to talk about constantly. And my Social Security sources, which is the entire Social Security advocacy community, and it's a big community and very smart and knowledgeable, are constantly fretting, and I think they are right to do so, that if the Republicans ever get power, they're going to take a hatchet to this program, because they've talked about doing this. And the fact that they're saying, they've always said, no, we're not going to cut out, what they actually say specifically, which I think is really dishonest and just awful, is they say, well, if you are retired or near retirement, we're not going to touch you. But for younger people, those we're going to, have real reforms. And the point I've always made is, if you think the reform is good, then you do it for everybody. And if you don't, and if it's not good, then you say you're going to protect the older people, who are the ones who vote most reliably. And you're going to say, we're going to hold you harmless. We're just going to screw your kids and your grandkids. So, you're okay, but everybody else is. Too bad about that.
Here's an interesting, Chris says, the elderly should have had more children to help them financially. That's how humans did it for millennia. That's the answer. Have the most expensive thing you can possibly dream up, which is a child. Have a lot of them. That's the way to secure
and hope
your
that
future.
they make more money than you've made. That's the other
Right. Michael Hiltzik, in our last few minutes, I wanted to ask you about a column I think you just did, which is about water and California. I just want to step away from the State of the Union. We'll get back to it with John Rothman, bottom of the hour. But tell me about the water wars that are developing in the West. That I mean, well, they reflect this 20-year drought cycle, or maybe it's even longer than that. But what's happening?
Well, yeah, we're in a long drought cycle, and this is a cycle that, given global warming, we're not sure we're ever going to get out of. The point I wanted to make in the column that ran today was that the conflicts, we're talking about the 7 states of the Colorado River Basin, of which California is the largest state and the largest beneficiary of Colorado River water, but also has the smallest amount of acreage in the basin. So it's always been, the other 6 states have always resented California. And this is another subject that I wrote a book about. I wrote a book, The History of the Building of Hoover Dam, and went into all this. And the fact of the matter is that the 6 other states of the basin have always been very, very wary and suspicious of California because of California's huge, voracious appetite for water. And the fact of the matter is that Hoover Dam got built because of California farmers who needed it built for flood control and irrigation, and they pushed it through Congress, over the concerns of these other states, and they ended up with an agreement that basically gives California the most water, but also provides guaranteed water for the other states. Well, now we're in a different world from what we were in 1922, when the 7 states reached their interstate compact under the guidance of then Commerce Secretary Herbert Hoover, and 1928, when the dam was authorized by Congress. It's just a different situation. And as I've pointed out on more than one occasion, the basis for the apportionment of water from the Colorado was always based on a lie. And it was a lie that was promoted by Hoover during the negotiations, when he basically he exaggerated the amount of water that was available from the Colorado so that he could persuade all 7 states that there'd be enough water for them no matter what California did. And that the bill for that is now coming due, because the river has never produced as much water as the compact anticipated, and it's producing less and less and less as the demands have grown. So the 7 states have to come together. They have to reconsider some of the guarantees that were made in the 1920s, but do it in a way that acknowledges that there's a lot of history here and a lot of animosity. I talked about the great Arizona-California War of 1934, when Arizona basically commandeered a ferry boat and tried to attack the construction site for Parker Dam that California was putting up. And the LA Times, we actually sent a war correspondent to the river to to chronicle this ludicrous, this sort of Gilbert and Sullivan event. But there's a lot of history here, and it's got to be sort of acknowledged.
Well, and I think the other thing, I suppose, and you've mentioned it here, is just a tremendous dependence that agriculture has on this water. And so that's economy, that's legitimate lobby, and it explains why California is slow walking any participation to any sort of compact, doesn't it?
Well, the agricultural community, they've gotten the most water, and they've paid the least for it, and they've also swanked around as though they're the only stakeholders in this who count. So, so they complain about water being used to preserve fisheries. They complain about the water that's being moved to urban areas, and basically there are 3 main claimants for this water and all water in the West, and that's the agriculture, urban users, and the environment, and their needs have to be acknowledged and accommodated. Agriculture can do more with better technology for irrigation and not planting tree fruits like almonds and pistachios, which need water, which you can't deprive of water ever. Stop planting alfalfa, which requires huge amounts of land and is very thirsty. Find something else to grow. Urban users in California, we've been very good at conserving, although, when we get a lot of rain, we stop conserving and we start wasting it. But there's a lot of give in the system if we do better conservation, more recycling, better irrigation, and we should have enough water to preserve the fisheries and the environment. But we have to acknowledge that we have these conflicting claims and that they all have to have a seat at the table, but they all have to cooperate with each other.
Right. There have to be modifications.
Like they're the only game in town.
Right. Everybody's demand list has to be modified. You can read Michael Hiltzik in the LA Times. Also, now with the big World Wide Web, you can read Michael Hiltzik all over the world. It's very exciting. And I do love your stuff, and I love your takes, and I love that you are in touch with us. And thank you for being with us today. The great Michael Hiltzik, everyone. How about it?
With your iron rod.
Smash it. Smash the like button for Michael Hiltzik with your iron rod.
And sorry for the Michigan sweatshirt, but my son went to Michigan, and he knows that. The last sweatshirt he gave me was worn out, so he gave me a new one.
Don't apologize for what is a deliberate shout out to Michigan. We know what you're
Michigan
doing.
got my money. Colgate, where you and I went, got my father's money. So
yeah, we went to Colgate. Hiltzik and I went to the same university. So, hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.